All right, let's talk about the U.S. housing market, because right now it feels like it's completely stuck in neutral. It's one of the biggest economic puzzles out there, and today we're going to dig into the data to figure out exactly what's going on.
So here it is, the big question. What gives? Why is the housing market in this bizarre limbo? It's basically a standoff. You've got buyers who can't buy and sellers who can't sell. Let's break down how we got into this mess.
And this lays it out perfectly. It's a tale of two sides. On one hand, you have potential buyers looking at just crushing unaffordability, with monthly payments higher than we've ever seen. But on the other hand, you've got sellers who are basically trapped in their own homes by these amazing super low mortgage rates, a situation we're going to call the golden handcuff effect.
So, let's tackle the first part of this puzzle. Let's look at it from the perspective of someone trying to buy a house right now. To put it mildly, it's an affordability nightmare. This number right here, this is the showstopper. $2,665. That's what you're looking at for the average monthly payment on a new 30-year mortgage. I mean, wow. That single figure pretty much says it all about why buyers are hitting a brick wall.
And this chart really drives home the disconnect. Look at how many people can actually afford these prices. If you add up those first two bars, you're talking about more than 76 million U.S. households that can only swing a home under $300,000. That's the huge majority of the country, and they are, for all intents and purposes, completely locked out.
So what's the real-world impact of all this? Well, here it is. The dream of owning your first home is getting pushed further and further down the road. Back in 2008, the typical first-time home buyer was 30. Today, that number's jumped all the way to 40. That's an entire decade of waiting.
So yeah, it's absolutely no surprise that people are feeling pessimistic. When you make sky-high payments with sky-high prices, you get this. Nearly half of all consumers are just throwing their hands up and saying, you know what, this is a terrible time to buy a house.
Okay, so let's switch gears and look at the other side of this standoff. Because if demand is this weak, you'd think prices would be dropping, right? Well, they're not. And the reason why is the other major crisis. There just aren't any houses for sale.
This is the million-dollar question that cracks the whole thing open. If buyers are on the sidelines, why aren't prices in a free fall? Well, the answer isn't about the buyers. It's all about the sellers, or maybe more accurately, the people who would be sellers. This chart explains pretty much everything. Just look at this. More than half, 52% of all mortgages in the country have an interest rate below 4%. And get this, a full 20% have a rate below 3%. These people aren't just homeowners. They're sitting on a winning lottery ticket.
And that's exactly where the golden handcuffs come in. Why would you ever move? The financial hit is just massive. To sell your house would mean giving up one of the best loans in modern history, only to get a new one at a way higher rate. We're talking an extra $1,000 a month, maybe more, for a similar house. It's just a non-starter for most people.
And with millions of homeowners deciding to stay put, the result is a market that is absolutely starved for listings. As you can see from this chart, the supply of existing homes for sale just fell off a cliff and has been stuck at these rock-bottom levels ever since. There's just nothing to buy.
And the scale of the shortage is just staggering. We're not talking about a small gap here. The long-term deficit of homes in the U.S. is now estimated to be 2.4 million. The country is literally millions of homes behind where it needs to be.
So you've got these two incredibly powerful forces. Demand has been crushed, but supply has been completely choked off. Let's see what happens when they collide, because it creates this really strange price paradox.
Here it is, the great housing standoff in one picture. On the left, demand is in the basement. Mortgage applications are scraping the bottom of the barrel. But on the right, supply is just as weak, because nobody wants to list their house. It's like a giant tug of war where both sides are exhausted and the rope just doesn't move. Everything is frozen. And in a stalemate like that, prices stay stubbornly high. This map really brings it home that this isn't just a New York or a California problem. From coast to coast, that lack of houses for sale is propping up prices and locking buyers out everywhere.
So after all that pushing and pulling, this is where we land. The median sales price for a home in the U.S. is sitting at over $400,000, a direct result of this frustrating and frankly weird price paradox.
Okay, so that's the situation on the ground. The big question is, where do we go from here? And to get a sense of the future, it really helps to look at the past and see how this moment compares to other major housing slowdowns. Now, this table is fascinating. At first glance, things look familiar. Look at the drop in home sales, down around 40%. That's right in line with the big slowdowns in '79 and '05. But here's where today is completely different. Check out that last column, housing starts. That's new construction. Back then, construction absolutely cratered, down 55%, even 75%. Today, it's only down about 30%, and that tells you everything. The underlying housing shortage is so bad that builders can't stop building, even with weak demand. That's what makes this time different.
So what's the bottom line? While we've seen slowdowns before, the speed of this one is just unprecedented. The Federal Reserve's rate hikes essentially slammed on the brakes of the housing market faster than any other time in history.
And that brings us to one final, pretty unsettling thought. When you put it all together, the affordability crisis, the supply shortage, those golden handcuffs, you have to ask about the long-term damage. Are we watching the classic American dream of a starter home get replaced by the reality of a lifetime of renting? That's the real question at the heart of this great housing standoff.